I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And Katie Yee and I were just trying to figure out when we met because honestly, I feel like I've been in this woman's orbit for just about forever. And it was honestly at, well, what was it? It was like dinner with the Susan Campbell Emerging Writers Fellows at the Center for Fiction here in New York. And I will say yes to hanging out with writers who are at the start of their careers at any point. So,
especially if it involves good food.
Yeah, actually, the food was good, but more importantly, the conversation was great. And I'm very happy to say that Maggie, or A Man and a Woman Walk into a Bar, which is Katie's debut novel, is out now. And I'm so excited that this book is out in the world because it rewrites divorce novels, which I think was a little overdue. And I love an unnamed narrator who's slightly unreliable. I wouldn't say totally unreliable, but slightly unreliable. And we get to play with, I don't know, Chinese mythology, bad husbands, all sorts of good stuff, and friendship, because her buddy, Darlene, is one of my favorite characters. Katie, we finally get to do this. We've been planning this for months. Wild how long it took us to sit down.
I know.
But hey, I want to talk about when Maggie started. And I am going to refer to the book throughout this conversation as Maggie because it's easier and it's also how I think about it. But Maggie is the other woman, not our narrator.
Correct.
And this is a divinely witty, warm, smart novel that I wasn't expecting from someone as young as you.
I think I'm going to take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. It's a huge compliment. You know how I feel about this book.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, you're not the first person to tell me this. I feel like lately I've been walking into a lot of rooms where people's first impression of me is sort of like, oh, you are not who we were expecting to walk into now. And I think that that's so interesting. I mean this with absolutely no shade towards autofiction. Like, I love so many incredible, books that are works of autofiction, but I'm curious about why people usually expect debut novelists to only write about their own lives in a strictly one-to-one way.
Lack of imagination.
I guess so.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, and there is some great autofiction out there, and I have had some of those writers on this show, but I do love seeing someone just stretch a little bit, whether it's, the voice, right? Like, it's the voice that makes Maggie really sticky. And I want to talk about the creation of that voice because you hit on something, and I don't know if it started before the fellowship or if it started like one day as you're walking down the street.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I totally did not answer your
That's okay. We're going back to it for a second.
I started writing this book probably around 5 years ago. She started as a short story, and then I kind of just kept coming back to her. She was a short story that kind of got too big and started rolling away from me.
And then when I think about Maggie is 200 and something pages?
She's a slender novel.
190,
less than 200 pages.
194. Yeah. It's delightful. Jessica Anthony did something similar with The Most. Different kind of marriage on the rocks kind of novel, but I think of them sort of as siblings, to be honest, because there's a continuum. If you haven't read The Most, go back, read The Most.
I have.
Okay, you of all people, and I promise you, it's 174 pages.
Okay. And another great kind of a fair novel, Megan Hunter's Harpy.
Yes.
Which also it's very short, very wonderful, also kind of delves into mythology. I love a short novel.
Short novels are hard, too. They are technically hard. You can't get flabby with anything. When you're trying to tell, novellas we're going to take novellas out of the equation for a second. And I guess you could argue that Harpy and The Most technically are a novella. You are not technically a novella, I will say.
I will say that the entire time that I was kind of wrapping up the first draft, Googling minimum number of words to be considered a novel, the internet seemed to think it was roughly around 40,000 was cuspy and passable.
Okay, the internet is not always right.
That is
more importantly. Tight cast, obviously. We've got mom, we've got dad, we've got the mistress who flits sort of in and out. We've got Darlene, the best friend, and two kids who are very kid-like, which I appreciate because sometimes you get kids in these tiny novels and I'm like, is that actually a child? Or is that a teenager in disguise? Is that a 40-year-old in disguise? But we got to talk about voice and we got to talk about how all of these people contribute to the overall narrative voice because it's so nicely done. It's so tightly done. It is, I cannot say enough good things about it, but obviously I don't want to give up plot points in a novel that is 194 pages long. I am not taking away the surprise.
Okay, that's fair. Voice. What can I tell you about voice? I think it was really important to me to try to write a novel that could be funny, even if it was about really serious topics. I started out as a short story writer, and actually most of my short stories deal with like magical realism, mythology, which does come into this a little bit. And when I started writing Maggie as a short story, I was sort of trying to surprise myself and to set up a challenge for myself where I was kind of like, no more magic. Nothing surreal can happen. You're kind of bound by the rules of the real world. And I was curious to see what I might reach for in its place. And it turns out the thing was humor, an attempt at humor. And that's kind of where the voice started.
It is very funny, this novel. Listening to you talk a second ago, though, I was thinking about Weike Wang's novels like Chemistry or Joan
Big influence for me.
Right. Joan is Okay and Rental House, where she just does this she slips in these very funny lines while she's poking at you about something else. And I appreciate that so much because you need space to breathe, right? Like,
yes. In Joan is Okay, she has this one line that I have not been able to stop thinking about. It's like in the middle of like her life is falling apart and she goes home and she checks the mail and she's got a Cheng'en flyer. And I laughed out loud. I thought that was such a hilarious, like very human observation. And I think with so much of what I've tried to put into Maggie is exactly that kind of like funny, weird human element, right? Like, yes, a lot of the novel takes place in hospital waiting rooms and like doctors' offices, but I really wanted to play up how weird it is to be a body in those rooms, right? Why are the paper cups so small? Why do you have to fill out the same form with the tiny boxes 1 million times? Do you take your socks off when you're waiting for the doctor? I mean, all those kind of weird things, they say the devil is in the details, but I also think that's where the court jester lives.
The court jester, but also the universality, right? Like, I read to have my world blown up in a way. Like, I want my expectations challenged, and I want my ideas of how anything works, honestly, pushed back a little bit on by fictional characters. Like, you and I are going to start probably talking about these people like they're real. But the choice to have an unnamed narrator.
Yes. Let's talk
about this for a second, because part of me totally gets it. And part of me is like, but why doesn't she get a name?
I'm really bad at naming characters. I think that is one of the hardest things to do, and actually something that the narrator struggles with as well. There's like a whole section about how she has a really hard time naming her children. But for me, and I went back and forth on whether or not she would get a name, but I think when you name something, you lay claim to it and you put your own ownership over it. And in our narrator, you'll see I keep referring to her as our narrator. I wanted her to feel like she could belong to anyone. Really, this story that hopefully is really relatable. I wanted her to feel like she could belong to you or to anyone listening.
Again, I love that universality, right? Like, I feel like Sam, her husband, is a dude I have met 1,000 times before, right? Like, Darlene is someone, I have a Darlene. I think we all have a Darlene, right?
I
like
hope
that friend,
so.
That friend who's like, oh. And the rest of it, not so much my life, but there's enough that I can anchor in. And that voice to me is also really sticky. One of the things that you're doing too is letting her tell stories that her mom told her to her children.
Yes.
However she remembers them. And they do derive from Chinese mythology, which I will say it's actually harder than it should be to find collections of mythologies that are not Greek.
Yes.
All props to the Greeks and I get it. Like, I love a novel that's derived from, but can we just broaden the definition of mythology for just a second, please?
Can we please? I mean, my own mother was a classics major in college.
Okay.
So I did.
There you go.
There it is. So I grew up listening to a lot of like fantastic Greek myths, and actually completely, I credit my love of storytelling to her, and the way that like she and I would sit down at bedtime and she would tell me like probably a Greek myth, but like, she took it down. So it was more PG. And then she would kind of encourage me to come up with my own stories. Like she'd be like, your turn. So totally that's where my love of it comes from. But I also grew up with a little bit of Chinese mythology. Some of the myths that I've put in here have been told to me by my mother, by my grandmother. But just echoing what you were saying, like it is weirdly hard to find like collections of Chinese myths. And I can't remember what book it was, but I had actually been trying to do some research into this. And I picked up this one collection of Chinese myths And the introduction was something that was so, it said something like, these myths, it might be surprising how like relatable they are. They're just like the myths you and I know. And I was like, who is the you and I? What have you
Right.
decided about your audience here? And I think that, I would just love to see so much more of our mythology in these stories. I mean, Maxine on Kingston, woman warrior, huge influence. What she does with talk stories was majorly inspiring to me when I read it in high school.
I mean, there's a very cool new Penguin paperback edition of Journey of the West, which some listeners will know as Monkey. It's pretty great. It's a new translation and it swings. It is so good. And, Emily Wilson, right? Like, she got me to reread the Odyssey. She got me to reread the Iliad. And I can promise you I was not planning on either of those things. But again, like, it's just so interesting to see what a translator can do with that kind of material. But I love the idea that these stories get handed down and they get edited and they get fiddled with and all of this kind of stuff, because it's about the relationship between the storyteller and the listener. And in this case, mother and daughter, mother and son, mother. And I love that. There's a continuum there that becomes really intimate, very personal, and yet connects you to this bigger thing, right?
Even when I was in the middle of writing this, I was sitting with my mom. We were at a diner, as we usually are together. And I was telling her a little bit about the novel. She hadn't read it yet. And she kind of just stops me and she goes, "Did I ever tell you this myth?" And then that, of course, ended up in the story as well. So I like this idea that it was, in that way, kind of this collaboration between us, the stories that she was passing down when I was a kid and like all the way up until like a year ago.
That is very cool. That is very, very cool. But then we get to flip it on its head because, again, you're putting our narrator through, I don't know. I mean, you could argue it's a quest novel, right? There are going to be people who are like, well, isn't this just a divorce novel? And I'm like, when is a novel just about divorce? I mean, divorce is so much more than that.
Well, it is. And in so many divorce novels that I have like absolutely loved, I like they're very claustrophobic to the home, which is like very intentional and that totally makes sense. But for me, I'm really lucky. I've never had to go through anything truly, truly difficult all by myself. I have so many Darlene's, so many best friends who are always at my side. And it was really important to me to put that character in the book as well.
Yeah, we need more novels about friendship, but that's a whole different conversation. Sarah Thankam Mathews, actually, her novel, All This Could Be Different, which was a finalist for the National Book Award, like that is a terrific, terrific novel about friendship. But it's the relationships that sustain us, right? Like even now, it's almost like, well, you're either a mom or a friend. You're either a wife or a friend. It's like, why are we trying to slot people into these lanes and not let them out, right? Like, that's the most interesting thing when you're watching how her interpretation of herself, her narrative, changes because of context, right? Like, I read novels for context about the world, right? I mean, sometimes the newspaper doesn't give you what you need.
Right. Oftentimes not. And yeah, I think I just wanted to create like a character who was exactly as you said, like a mother, I guess a soon-to-be ex-wife, someone who was heartbroken, and a mother who really loved her kids, but who was also kind of messy, right? A little bit unhinged. She also loves having margaritas with her best friend in the middle of the day. Yeah, I wanted to let her out of those boundaries.
But how do you, when you're writing a novel that's this tightly created, right? Like, how much of the writing comes out of the editing? I mean, I know this started as a short story, and so it sounds counterintuitive to say how much of this longer thing that started as a tiny thing comes out of the editing, but I feel like you really had to sit and carve and pull stuff out because the temptation, I mean, it's a great world that you've created. They're fun characters to hang out with, even though stuff is going off the rails. So how do you pull back and chip into this story that we get?
I think the first time I submitted this novel in its entirety to my agent, it was like 40,000 words. Again, that comes from me Googling minimum number of words for a novel. I feel like I had kind of given myself basically the structure of the build that I was working in. And then so much of the editing process with my lovely agent Duval and with my incredible editor Judy Klein, most of their notes were sort of like, great, can we sit in this scene for like another 2 beats? Or can this conversation happen for like 1 more minute? I had this professor in college, Becky Godwin, who always told us the best writing happened 20 minutes after you didn't leave the room. And I think a lot of what came in at the end was sort of like, yeah, just my editors being like, can you sit in this room, please, just for a little bit longer?
That is so great to hear. That just makes me very, very happy. Let's talk about literary influences for a second, though, because obviously Weike is part of that.
Definitely.
You have also interviewed Julie Otsuka, and of course, I cannot have a conversation with you without talking about Julie, who, as we all know, I am a huge, huge fan of.
I love
also
her.
talk about someone who's, not autofiction is not what she's doing either, but again, very voicey. Very When the Emperor Was Divine,
she's operating on a whole different plane.
The Swimmers.
The Swimmers, which very serious, but again, there were lines in there where I was like, this is kind of funny.
I have to tell you, if anyone ever touched my foot, though, while I was swimming, I think I might actually kick them. Like, she slips these details in where I'm like, does that really happen? She's like, oh no, people do that. I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry.
But again, that a lot of the humor then comes from like these things that you've kind of noticed in passing that you've put your body through that in hindsight, if you frame it the right way, can be kind of comical.
All right, but more influences. I mean, those are the obvious. Weike and Julie are sort of the obvious ones, but I know there's more because you've been writing for a really long time.
I've never wanted to do anything else with my life. I mean, Nora Ephron, obviously huge influence. Heartburn is like one of my favorite books ever. If you've not read it.
People, yes, go back, find it, modern classic. And also Scandal, when it was first published, people were like, what is this? What is she talking about? Why is she talking about her terrible husband? Because that was autofiction.
I grew up watching like all of her and Delia's movies, right? Like You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally, obviously. And then I feel like it didn't occur to me to like look for the rest of her writing oeuvre until like a couple of years ago. So Heartburn, also a very slender novel, also a divorce novel, but so much more than that. Just incredibly funny. Do yourself a favor. Read it if you haven't. Laurie Colwin, also kind of in that vein. One of my best friends recommended her to me as sort of like a Nora Ephron adjacent. Just really gets at the heart of like interiority of women going through hard times in a way that still feels kind of cozy and full of friendship. The one I'm reading right now by Laurie Colwin is called A Big Storm Knocked It Over. And like in the first scene, you've read it. I see your face.
Yeah. It's been a minute, but yeah, Laurie Colwin sticks with you.
She does. And she's got this best friend character. I was so happy to discover. I just started reading this like this week. But she and her best friend call each other in the middle of the workday. They call each other like 1,000,000 times a day. Their cute little sign off is like, well, call me, 100 more times today. And I just love that.
There's a warmth to Maggie. And I think it really does come from the humor. But there's a warmth to this book where no one is actually the bad. And yeah, I'm rolling my eyes a little bit at Sam, but no one's actually the bad guy. I mean, he really was not planning this. He's just Sam.
He's just Sam. And on a craft level, I think something that I tried to do, because he was like, I guess he's quote unquote the villain. But to kind of round him out a little bit, I've given him bits and pieces and traits of people that I love. So in physical description, he might look a little bit like my boyfriend. Even in terms of his name, Sam, I have a really hard time naming people, but two of my best friends, Samantha and Samaya, Sam is a name that I'm really used to saying. So I wanted to kind of put at the level of the line that like tenderness in the way that you get your mouth around that sound. You know what I mean? She makes at some point kind of like a user's manual for her husband as a way to kind of exercise all of these, like, I mean, what do you do when you're going through a heartbreak and you have all these weird details that you know about someone? And in that list, which was super fun to create, I put like a bunch of details about myself, about, the fact that Sam loves sequels and that's something that they make fun of him for. Like, I love a sequel.
Wait, you really do?
This is like a whole other conversation.
Wait. Okay, now I'm totally fascinated because I can't think of a sequel that I actually...
Like a movie sequel? Really?
I mean, I have terrible taste in movies, right? Like Fast and the Furious 2, no one really needs that.
Okay,
Speed 2, definitely no one needed that.
What about Top Gun 2? What about Sister Act 2? Princess 2 Royal Engagement?
I've not seen any of that. So I have a terrible weakness for action movies. And oh wait, no, I did see Top Gun 2. That was not terrible. That was actually not terrible. But like the second Mission Impossible was kind of annoying, even though John Woo directed it. I don't like. I'm not the person who's going to run and say, "Oh my God, yes, sequels." I like that detail in you.
Here's what it is, though, and I'm also thinking like Miss Congeniality too. Sure, I guess you could say that.
Haven't seen it.
That Miwa, I feel like you and I have to sit down and do like a real.
Yes. When you get done with this tour that is going to take you on the road for the rest of your life, sure.
Deal. A reason to come home. There's something about sequels that, like, even if the plot, you feel like we're losing the plot, you return to these characters in this sense of coziness in a way that feels to me like sitting at a bar with your friends and it's the end of the night and you're saying, well, let's just get one more round. No one's ready to say goodbye.
I totally get that. I mean, I will also admit that Alice Elliott Dark is working on a sequel to this novel she wrote years ago called In the Gloaming. It's a short story that's part of a collection, but she is going back to some of those characters in the next novel, and I am dying to read this book. I cannot wait. Cool. And, the book comes when the book comes.
Get rushing.
I understand that, but I really, and it's been, In the Gloaming was sort of mid-90s, late 90s. So it's been a minute since she's seen these characters, and I am dying to read this. I cannot wait. Which is not news. I think she knows that as well. But the idea of the familiar, right? Like, I mean, every reader needs something to lock into when they're reading, right? And we all bring our own backstories to anything we read. I love a funny novel, but I don't necessarily need like laugh out loud, guffaw, drop the book on the floor funny. I need sort of the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Where it's like, did you notice that too? Did you see? I love that. Absolutely. Love that. Which is what you're doing in Maggie. And when did you know that that's how this was all going to play out? I mean, this is not a first draft.
Certainly not a first draft. I mean, I think, again, like with humor, as we were kind of saying, there's something that feels very universal about some of these details that you're pulling out of, going to the doctor's office or swimming in a community, anything like that. And I think that's why, to me, humor is so interesting. I think it kind of could draw people in or kind of draw a dividing line, right? Do you get it? Are you with me? In a way that I thought was interesting. And one of the preoccupations of our narrator is she's kind of obsessed with trying to make her children laugh. And I think to me, that bit of it was kind of like she loves them so much. And also she really wants to get to know them. She wants to see if they share her sense of humor. I think there are some parents who, their kid is born and they're like, they will be like an engineer. They will be an entrepreneur. I feel like so much of our narrators sort of like, I want to like get to know them. I want to meet them new every single day because kids change so much when they're at this like squishy, malleable age.
I think it's also I think I'm asking about familiarity and how much familiarity you had. I mean, you talked about it a little bit with Sam. It's like, okay, so I'm giving him characteristics of people I love so that he doesn't turn into sort of a cardboard cutout. Like, we don't need him twirling his mustache, right? Like, we need fully developed people that we want to hang out with, even if they're not perfect, even if like, I mean, I love this narrator. I do. I think she's exactly the kind of chick I would like to hang out with. She's holding back in some ways, right? Like when we meet her, and I'm dancing around a thing, right? Like she doesn't. It's partially her background and how she was raised that she doesn't necessarily always want to talk about the emotional stuff that is driving her life, right? She's also put herself into a space, right, in this relationship, in her friendship with Darlene, in, the roles you have to take on as a mom at like the PTA and all that, where she is to a certain extent living in translation, right? And she's having to translate herself to people where she's like, why am I actually having to translate? Like even her children, she's like, they don't get me. The funny thing being these.
They're growing up very differently than she was.
And I still trust her.
That's good to know. That's good to hear.
I still trust her, and it's because of the voice. So did you have it right out of the gate? Like, did you just figure out what she was going to sound like and who she was going to sound like. And again, we're not talking autofiction here. You have to cut her from an entire new bolt of cloth.
I think for me, voice always comes first.
Okay.
Whenever I start writing anything, it totally starts with the voice. The first line, as it is in the novel, always been the first line.
Okay.
And I feel very lucky about that. I mean, for me, I'm going to go on this whole other rant. I'm sorry. But have you heard this whole like aphantasia thing that I feel like has recently captured the internet? So Radiolab came out with this episode a couple months or a year ago. That was all about aphantasia, which is basically the idea that there are people out there who have like a hard time capturing like a mental image, right? So like if they close their eyes and you tell them to picture an apple, they have kind of a hard time doing that. They have like the abstract idea of an apple, but they couldn't really be like, it was green with like a light, like yellow speck. They can't do that. And I think that this also translates to how we all read maybe a little bit differently. So for myself, I don't think I have like complete aphantasia, but since it's kind of a sliding scale, I would say that I mean, long descriptions of like nature and there's like a tree and a lake. I can't see that. I cannot hold that image in my mind. So when I'm reading and when I'm writing, it really does come down to the sound of each sentence and the voice.
I love that though.
How about you? Can you picture when you...
I can. It really depends. I mean, there are times where I want a short, tight novel that is punchy in its own, and I don't necessarily mean like language first for me, always. And language and voice to me are inseparable, right? Like I use them as synonyms, which some people might take issue with that. And okay, that's fine. Take issue with it. But I do use them as synonyms. I am okay if stuff doesn't happen in a book as long as the language is great. Because there's always, to me, great language is always revelatory. And sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's behavior. A character will do something that surprises me, or my response to something that a character says. And I don't mean like a character climbs to the top of a mountain and then you have the epiphany. They don't find the ring. They don't, it's none of that. It's when I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I really like to be surprised. And those are the things that I hold on to much more when I'm reading. And that to me comes from language. Again, it takes away the surprise. It takes away the serendipity. It takes away the discovery. It takes away the interaction that we have, that we bring, right? Like I don't actually need something to predict a thought.
No.
Or I actually like to pick words, and sometimes I don't pick the right words, or sometimes I pick words that I think are delightful and someone will look at me and be like, you can't say that. I write a lot of copy. And occasionally my editor will be like, what are you? No. I mean, and I can find copy that I've written, just randomly for the company, and I'll find it later. I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that. I recognize that pattern. Boom.
But that's kind of the whole point, right?
It is. I'm also thinking about Ocean Vuong's Emperor of Gladness, which is a very funny book.
I haven't read it yet. No, I haven't even. That's like one of the episodes of yours that I skipped because I have to read it first.
There are not spoilers in it. But what I will say is it's a very, very, it's a laugh out loud funny book in ways that I was not expecting. And I love the first book, and I love the poetry. And he does stuff on the page that is just, especially in the poetry. Yeah. Especially there's like the thing that he can do with like 4 words. And I'm just going, okay. But the humor, again, like the humor is so key to my understanding of the world, or my willingness to stay submerged in the world kind of thing. Like, and he's same thing as with you, dealing with big stuff, big, messy, complicated, ouch, I didn't feel this coming kind of moments. But the language is the thing that holds you. And I think it's the laughing with recognition. I think that's part of it. It's like, how did you know? Get out of my head. How did you know that? And again, haven't been divorced, don't have children. Like, I don't need a literal representation of my life to connect with words on the page.
Doesn't have to be one-to-one. That's the whole reason why. Yeah, definitely.
Have you started working on the next thing, though?
Maybe just a little bit. I don't quite know exactly what it is, but I guess I'll throw out some things that I've been thinking about, if that is at all interesting. Well, I work at the Brooklyn Museum, so I think this next one might take place in a museum.
Good idea. I like that.
Always good to everything is copy, as Nora says.
She's not wrong.
Not wrong. Again, I think the question of love is something that I'm always going to be interested in writing about. So I think there will be kind of a heartbreak in a different form in this one. And I think I don't know how much I should even say. I want to play with structure in this one. So I think we'll see. But I think the most important thing to me at this stage is kind of returning to a sense of play. So when you're talking about voice and humor, that means a lot to me that kind of came through to you as a reader, because I always want, when I'm writing, I'm having fun, right? Like I always want to feel that sense of play and surprise for myself.
Did you read Audition, the last Katie Kid?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Right. Talk about structure.
Talk about play.
All of it. And I was like, okay, more of that, please. I'm good.
I'm so excited too, though, because I haven't read the new Catherine Lacey Mobius.
It is in my bag for the weekend.
Well, we'll have to chat about it later, because that's like next on the pile for me. And I am told that it's like, again, a very experimental form, which is exciting to me.
I just, we can do so much with a novel that we can't do with another form of art, right? Like we get the interiority, we get to play with structure, we get to play with world building. And again, like world building, I will get on my hobby horse for a second. I know I've said this before, but world building belongs to any piece of fiction or art or screen work, what have you. It's not just something that's limited to a specific kind of genre. It is something that any writer has to do. Like I am fully bought in to the world that you give us in Maggie, but we have no place markers. We could be in New York. We could be in Chicago. We could be in Boston. We could be in Kansas City. We could be in Dallas, or we could be anywhere. Because the universality of the experience, right, is the family. It's the family and the friendship, right? That's the world.
Totally. And I'm so glad that you said that. So I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised, lived here my whole life. And as has been established, I have a hard time capturing a mental image of things. So when it came time to write about place, some of it is kind of loosely based on places I've been in Brooklyn. But when we were editing it, and again, like this is not by any stretch of the imagination like a New York novel. So when we were editing it, we took, I think, like I maybe say Prospect Park like once in the first draft. So we just kind of took that out. And I think the logic there was sort of like, we didn't name our narrator. Now I'm saying we, the collective we. I didn't name our narrator because I wanted her to feel like she could belong to anyone. And I thought it made the most sense maybe for the place to also feel like this could take place anywhere.
And I do like novels where the place is so distinct that it becomes its own character.
Definitely.
There are times I need that grounding. I did not need that grounding here. What I needed was the voice. Right, like that was the thing that kept me, the overall arching narrative voice, the characters together, that's what kept me grounded and turning pages. I was just like, okay, I need to know what happens next. And there is no scaling of Everest.
No, I mean, it's that when you run down the plot, and this is no spoilers, it's all right there in the jacket copy, right? Like husband is having an affair, so there's divorce. She's diagnosed with breast cancer, like shortly thereafter. It sounds like it's going to be a really dramatic book, but I put that all right up at the front so that the majority of the journey can kind of be about her reclaiming these stories that she's been telling herself, her kind of sifting through everything that's happening with her best friend. That to me was like the meat of the story that I wanted to get into.
You could describe this as a coming of age.
You could.
I mean, again, coming of age is a phrase that's been sort of co-opted for, plucky 14-year-old takes on, the world. I do think, though, that you can have coming of age stories where the protagonist is in their 60s. I mean, better to do it sometime than not at all.
Right. Well, because so much of the genre of coming of age is like disillusionment of family or disillusionment, right, of your past, which she obviously goes through here.
She does, but it comes together in a way where it becomes hers.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say it becomes hers, it's not that she was sort of sleepwalking through her life. It's just you have to accept the thing that is in front of you, right? Like, I mean, part of great literature is all of the people who will not accept the thing that's right in front of them, and then we get a great story out of it. But for our narrator, I think you've written a kind of sneakily hopeful book.
Thank you.
It's kind of a sneaky little thing that happens where you're like, oh.
Thank you. That's exactly why I wanted to kind of balance humor and tragedy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think no experience that you ever go through is like completely one note, right? To paint any experience like that would be like painting with one singular color. And so I wanted, there to be shades of humor, even though there was tragedy. And I wanted there to be, I think, at the end, a little bit of hope. And so much of that comes from her friendship with Darlene.
Also, Darlene's art is great, and that's all I'm going to say, but it's very funny. And I'm sorry, if you do not laugh out loud when you first encounter Darlene's art, Darlene's great, but really the art
My favorite.
It's delightful. That was definitely laugh out loud funny.
The facts of the story do not follow the facts of my life, but Darlene's art is a little bit based on one of my friends from college.
Okay.
And I don't know how much I want to, I don't think, there are no spoilers really for this.
No, not for the art. No. But it is very funny and it fits in very well.
In college, my friend Georgia started making all of these vases, and at some point she put lids on them, and we were talking about urns. So for everyone listening who hasn't read, Darlene makes these kind of urns, but for good things, right? Like things that you want to celebrate the end of. And I said in college to my friend Georgia, I said, you have to start selling these on Etsy. You have to call the shop Earned It. URN.
Oh, yeah.
And I gave her however many years between now and then to start this business, and she did not. So I said, I'm putting it in this book. You've missed the window on this.
Well, I'm really glad you put it in the book. How does it feel? Speaking of, to have your debut out in the world. I mean, you've had criticism out in the world. You've had short stories out in the world. You've done profiles, really terrific profiles of writers I love. But this is a different thing. There's a lot more of you in this book than there is in the journalism and the stories and the criticism.
There is. I mean, I feel really lucky, honestly. I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. I have worked in publishing. I've seen so much of how the sausage is made. I've been on the other side of it. I've cheered on so many friends and other writers who I love, and I just feel really lucky to be sitting here talking to you on this side of it. People keep asking me if I'm anxious yet, though, and I don't like that question. I already wrote the damn thing. And why would I be anxious?
That's not a word I would think to ask. I'm just going to furrow my brow a little bit, just be confused. Because I'm delighted by this book. But again, like, you are younger than some people might expect. And this is a compliment. This is very much, you have an old soul, Katie.
Thank you.
You have an old soul. That is not a bad thing.
I think this comes from being an eldest daughter. I think that's where that is.
Yes, that's exactly where that comes from. Exactly. Okay, you know what, Katie? We hit the magic hour and I have to hand you off to another interviewer. This is the great joy of watching a debut hit the world, and it's like, oh, actually, I have to share you. So fine. I'm delighted that Maggie's out in the world. Maggie, or a man and a woman walk into a bar, which is one of the best titles I've seen in a while. I just tend to shorten it because I can. Anyway, Katie Yee, it is so good to see you. I am so happy that Maggie is out in the world, and I cannot wait for readers to get their hands on this book.
Thank you so much, Miwa. This has been an absolute joy and pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much.
And we have a movie date when you get back from the road, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yes, please. Sequels. I'll start the list.
Okay, good.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.